Enhancing efficiency, part 3. Welcome back. It's mostly going to be a two-part thing. So we'll be looking a little bit at where we are with the assessing and the grading technologically, and then where we are in terms of what we can do and experiments that I've tried myself. So I'd like to start with a little overview of sort of the field itself. You've already seen this quote if you were at my first presentation. I forgot to include it in the second, but it is back in the third because it is a very useful quote to think about. What is literacy in this new 21st century context? How are we now required to both learn, unlearn, and then relearn something new? And how might this improve those things that we are doing in the classroom? So access to the previous slides is also there. I haven't gotten too much engagement on this thing here, and I'll come back to that point a little bit towards the end as we think about how we're really in an active moment where we have to do a lot of this for ourselves. And so getting that feedback, that engagement, what you're doing, what you're trying, however little, however much is really important. So if we can start to do something like that for ourselves in our district, that'd be great. Because I'll show you there are other people that are starting to do that, compile lists, compile resources. And it's nothing beyond what we've done here. So we can do it ourselves too. If you wanted to access the previous slides, they are there as well. And if you scan this thing, it'll take you to the Canva, which is live. You can definitely participate up there. It'd be great to have your insights. Now, sort of a little bit, where we are today. I'm going to have to hide this again. Sorry, it's the video panel. Video panel. It was the loading controls. There we go. So where we are today with AI, I like to sort of give a little survey of the field, things I've been reading about or researching. They banned AI for a minute in Australia, and it seems like they're undoing that really fast. So they're like, just kidding. By 2024, actually, we will allow ChatGPT in the classroom. So a little tiny update there from that part of the world. We've got
what was their reasoning for unbanning it? What did they find?
I think it's a lot of what we're doing here, even just really getting into the conversation, understanding the limitations. I think limitations are huge. Once you recognize what it can't do, you're like, oh, okay, well, then what can it do? And what can I do with it? And it's not the big scary monster in the room. But here's a sort of that approach of the big scary monster in the room, a little bit of the, how can we tell if it's AI, right? And so here are 19 telltale signs. Sorry, but to read this article, you have to pay for medium.com. So I was like, no, thanks. I'll just take the headline and move on because I don't need to hound students in this way. No offense to the author, of course. Approaching AI in any way right now is like really exciting and awesome to do. So absolutely, figuring it all out is the point. Now, as far as the little Pinocchio, the Jasper Whisperer, I thought this was hilarious. So look, AI Pinocchio. And if you know about Jasper AI is a commercial AI bot that's basically being integrated into a lot of private business. My buddy works for a company, I won't say which one right now, but he just got access to Jasper AI granted to him as a marketer or salesman. So they're out there, they're going to be using these things and just out in the world. Here's a great article on rethinking assessment, which did in fact filter some of these ideas filtered into this presentation, right? How do we rethink assessment? I've been thinking about assessment for a long time. I know Josh and I talked about assessment individually, right? Multimodal assessment, right? Interdisciplinary, project-based learning. There's so many different things you can do. But I kind of wanted to look at the issues, right? So unfortunately, the expediency of essays is something that we always fall back on, right? So no matter what class you're teaching writing. And so that's been great for composition teachers who have to teach this process. But then the idea here is what happens when people just don't want to write? There's many students who don't. In my composition classes, it happens all the time. They don't, and we work at it, and it's great by the end, but it's a struggle all the way through. And a lot of them don't see the value beyond the classroom. Even if as I explain it to them, as I talk to them about marketing opportunities, about jobs out there, about anything that they can do with it, they just, sometimes it's interesting how we engage them in the classroom. But the point is, AI has been a great tool for bringing them in because now they're curious about, what is this about? And if this can write for me, why can't I use it? And there's ethical questions and there's issues of bias. And anyway, we use a lot of writing as the point. And don't get me wrong, I personally love writing. I do too, just like this author, but I take an essay over a multiple choice exam any day, and I'd probably prefer to write than to take an oral exam. So these preferences, right? Because the problem is not everyone enjoys writing. Not everyone can write an extended response. Well, that's what we aim to do in the composition class, right? Show you how. But that would be fine if essays weren't so prominent. And now that easily access technology exists that can do most of the essay writing, we have an even more complex problem. Because now it doesn't matter what class the students are in, they have access to this stuff, like period. And we've talked about ways that you can address that with AI policies and getting really ahead of it and talking to them about proper usage and how to approach it the best way. But it's definitely not to police it and not to ignore it. That's what we've at least learned in our few months of having access to GPT and sort of playing around with it. Here's the idea too, if students don't want to, they can if they can't find the time to, I like all the reasons, right? If they don't want to, if they can't find the time to, if they simply can't for some reason, then they can turn now to a chatbot. There's going to be so many of them, just easily available. The race is really to who does it the cheapest. And right now, I think it's something like 4 cents. Every prompt is about 4 cents for ChatGPT. So just think about all of that. So I'm prompting like 2,000 responses. I'm like, damn, how much would that have been if I was paying for each one? But then you do pay in the monthly cost. So there are new tools as well for the paid ones. So there are things to consider there as well. But here's where we are. Assessment has to change. Writing is a main component of how we assess students, but maybe we have to go beyond that a little bit if these tools are going to make the writing just fall to the backdrop. Now, here's another interesting one, just kind of a quick little tech-related idea, or technology as in hardware. So ChatGPT is looking to make some chips, basically, some AI chips. The page isn't loading, but you can look at it later. Anyway, here's the idea. 4 cents per rendering, like I said, is very expensive. So now they're getting into the manufacturing business now. They're going to make their own AI chips so that they can really push this thing forward and bring that cost down, which is what's going to make it really be more and more mainstream. So that's sort of where we are in the conversation of AI. Hopefully, that gives you a survey of the field in a good way. Now, the importance of grading and assessment in education is something that we all know well in this room, and anybody who's watching, I'm sure you do as well. Grading and assessment are crucial in measuring student progress and achievement. Is how we track who's succeeding, who's learning, who's able to apply those strategies, right? Now, in the age of AI, we may have a chance to address some of the challenges faced by educators in grading and assigning student work. Now, I'm curious if you can tell me what those challenges are for you, all of you on Zoom, and maybe some of us here in the room can talk about those too. So I haven't done too much of this prompting. I'm going to do this one a little bit more facilitation style. So please in the chat, tell me some of your challenges in grading and assessing. And y'all can do it too, please, in writing. So think about it. What are those challenges for you? If you have one up right off the bat, this one is main challenge. For me, it's time.
Yeah, we got that in the chat right now, time constraints and giving detailed feedback.
Which they don't even read. Oh man, we would love if they read it. And I spend so much time writing very thorough. Here's how you, and then they just come back and sometimes they read it. The ones that do, much love to them. The ones that don't, why don't you? Why don't you? Is a question that I ask them directly, and they say, and that's it. That's the answer. So it's not a very rewarding experience when you are spending time really, devoting time and energy to it. So I ended up addressing it in the classroom in my policy in the syllabus. I ended up telling them, I reciprocate your energy. If I see you trying really hard, I'm going to try even harder. Right from the office hours, let's talk more about it. It ended up being more of like an attitude adjustment thing for all of us. But with these tools, it might allow us to speed along some of these things that we've been doing already. If you think about what a template is already, I'm sure you all have rubrics for your essays and things that you grade already. And if this is similar enough to using a rubric, but it can automate some of the process and give us back some time, I think that's a good thing. Now, I'm willing, of course, to entertain arguments contrary to that, but what if it didn't go beyond that? Automating your templates and your prompts and your rubrics. That's it, giving assessment, hopefully not on high stakes grading, not where like the whole grade depends on the student work, but I think at this point we've all built in like little short assignments that are low stakes writing. So for those where they're just getting feedback and assessment on the go, I think those are really great use cases for this, right? More assessment, not less, but it's AI driven assessment based on what you're putting into the AI. So here are some of the things that I thought about as far as like pressures. Now, I'm willing to entertain, obviously, listen to some of your other issues. Was it more than time? Was there anything else? Do you have anything else beyond time? Anything else that was
Time
chatted about?
has come up multiple times in here about it being really time consuming, giving feedback, particularly with poor written work. Another person wrote in, the worse the student's writing, the longer it takes to grade and give feedback.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's absolutely the main concern here is how can we speed along some of those grammatical proofreading issues? If we, I mean, I've always taught this in my composition classes, it's about the big ideas first, right? The development, the organization, the introduction, the sequencing, like how you put time and energy into the development of the reasoning, right? And then the grammar comes last, and then the proofreading comes last. So I've largely relegated, you'll see this towards the end, I've largely relegated my AI use to those two bottom lines in my own rubric, right? So it's introduction, organization, development, right? Everything, all that first, and then at the bottom I have formatting and grammar, right? Because now they can just run the machine, run their writing through the machine, proofread. See, I got no problem with that because we're talking about I'm allowing you to use it in this way. But it's not writing for you. You'll see that in a minute. It's just revising grammar the way that any editor would. Right, circle the thing and note that it's there. Let them know that they've made a mistake. So a lot of those things that you think are time constraints, that I know are time constraints, are in focus here. Right, grading requires significant time investment, especially for educators with large classes. This can often lead to rushed evaluations, potentially affecting the accuracy of grades. Now, heading in that direction, we get into some other ethical, moral conversations about education, teaching, assessments, grading, the purpose of all of that. And I'm thinking, where's the student though? Are they getting what they need? Are they getting the support that they need to grow and thrive the way that they should? So how about we focus back on them instead? How about the pressure and stress, right? We were just talking about that. A lot of stress on us, a lot of work, a lot of accreditation, a lot of summaries to write up, a lot of student evals to put out, a lot of work on top of teachers' shoulders, external pressure. So of course, grading is a complicated thing, so is what I'm trying to show here. Subjectivity is also something to consider, right? Are you always objective in your own assessments?
The farther I go in grading and I am getting irritated by the lack of attention that students show in their work. And so I am getting the next students, they're getting my irritation.
Yeah, unfortunately, right? It's not the ideal scenario, but we're humans trying to figure this whole thing out, trying to make this work. And maybe if you had a way of gauging if a student's going to get an A on the paper, and you already know that because you've seen them put in the work, and you've seen them do the outlines, and you've seen them do, can I just run that prompt through the AI generator to see if it's a good draft? I've already seen them do all the preliminary work. I've sat down with them to make sure that it's accurate. I've developed ideas with them the way that we're supposed to in the classroom, and now they're just making sure it sounds good at the end, no rewriting, only proofreading. I'm okay with that. This is proofreading. Now, that would give me back some time. On the subjectivity front, I'm gonna go with Leonora and say thank you very much for that honesty. I hope you in the Zoom feel free to say if you feel fully objective in your analysis of each student response, or if you agree with Leonora's comment that sometimes you lose it over time. It's stress. No one's paying attention to your responses. There's a number of reasons. So that is a factor. And holistic assessment can be another factor. So the idea that we have a single method of assessing, that the essay is the end all be all. I mean, we've been moving away from it with project-based learning and other forms of writing. I mean, my students don't do less writing. They do 3 essays now. I took 1 essay away, but they do much more smaller form writing and projects and activities and analyses and things that I substitute for that essay. But I try to assess them on different skills, including their creativity and their artwork, even in an English class. But I make sure that they're writing enough and that they're writing well and that they're growing in their composition ability. Now, the benefits of AI-powered assessment then could be something more like personalized learning, adaptive content and assignments. And I actually have an example of that for you here in person. And for those of you that are not in person, I apologize for now, but I will link this a little bit later. I'll briefly explain what it is though. So this is just one way that I thought, how can I make this a bit more adaptive as an assignment and not necessarily assess the students on their writing, but their reading and their thinking and their communicating with each other about these ideas, right? So I tend to teach in my 105 class the story of Jason and the quest for the golden fleece, right? And so we talk about Medea and her role in that story. Josh is like, yes, I know that one, hell yeah, right? So we know that Medea is a complicated figure, and so I thought, you know what better than a debate? What better than a debate to say, is Medea culpable, or can we absolve her? Right? Are we going to be like Gorgias here and write an encomium of Helen? Right? Well, yeah, that was the idea. Can we absolve Medea? And so, I playing around with ChatGPT a little bit, I just had it give me opposing side views for either side. This is all ChatGPT's work. It borrowed from my notes, right? So I fed my notes in and I said, give me a debate style situation. So here it is. Beyond that, I said, give me a summary of the story. Some of the students don't read it. So here you go. And here's the answers to the story. They're usually in the back of the book, but here you go. So where does Jason go? The Clashing Rocks, the Harpies, the Isle of Lemnos, he battles the birds. That's where he goes. Here's your answers. You don't need to look for them in the story anymore. Now just go enjoy the story. Just go listen to it, read it and enjoy it, and then come back and think about it. That's my goal now for this activity, right? So I gave them the answers. Here you go. Summary of the story. Then I said, hey, add some symbolism and interpretations. We're going to analyze it in a literary way. So give them some of those answers too. Here you go. What's in the story? All right, well, the Golden Fleece is about power, authority, and legitimacy. Yup. But because they have that answer, does it mean that they can't now be questioned about it and expand on it or show a similar connection to that or a modern echo of that same situation, right? So this is where I'm like, it's higher order thinking in a fun, engaging way. What's Jason's journey? What about the Argonauts? Long story short, this was the part where I was really excited to use ChatGPT because a lot of that we could have done ourselves if we just gave ourselves the time. This part's a little bit harder, a little bit more creative. I said, tell me about Medea. Gave me a summary of who she is. Then I said, rewrite the story from Medea's point of view. And it spit it out. Here it is. In the heart of Colchis, I was more than just a princess. I was a revered sorceress. Yet when love beckoned, I abandoned it all for Jason. I sacrificed family, home, and status, naively thinking love would be our eternal anchor. But reality unfolded differently, presenting challenges I hadn't foreseen. And so now they got this new perspective from the point of view of Medea. So they had to wrestle with that. Now this is a person speaking to you. You're hearing her words from the story through her perspective. And it did, in fact, affect their reasoning and how they thought about the story and the eventual outcome. And in any case, all of this was just produced to expand something that I already do in my class, to make it bigger, to make it more engaging, and to have them think differently. But in no way was it diminishing or diluting what we do in the classroom. It was making it more critical. Now, I would call that adaptive content. We adapted, we made it bigger, we made it more grand. The assignment itself that comes after is the same. Hey, write me now your rationale for why Medea should or should not be punished. And are they going to go to ChatGPT and put that in and say, hey, give me that? Well, they could, but I've shown them that in the class. So I've said, look, here's its response. It's not a very good response because we can start to tell it's a very mechanized response, right? Once you learn the discourse of the AI chat responses, you start to, okay, I get it. I see it. I recognize it. It's like a student writing a 5-paragraph essay. If you teach composition, you know what I mean. Like you just, yep, there it is, 5 paragraphs. I know exactly what you did, right? It's commonplace. It's just a very familiar format. Now, what about instant feedback? I'll show you an example of that in just a minute, but instant feedback for me is huge. I have tons of students that really want to take me up on, hey, office hours, and hey, can we sit down and look at my draft, and I always want to say yes, and I'm like rushing in and out of the classroom, and I'm like rushing to my next class, or I'm rushing to pick up my kid. Okay, yeah, I'd love to sit down with you, but let's make time in office hours. Let's set up a Zoom call. We try to make it work, right? But it'd be really great if I had just a trained bot that sounds like me and thinks like me and speaks like me and assesses like me, and I already fed it all my assessments. They can just assess the students like me, right? An AI Josh. And AI Leonor, right? And AI, all of us just there serving our purposes when we're not in the classroom. That's all. A supplemental assistance, real-time grading. Our traditional grading systems can be time-consuming. With AI, students can receive immediate feedback on quizzes, assignments, and tests. We're not quite there yet with the essays. See, and that's good news for everybody. But I've been looking for like where's the tool that's going to take, that step forward and really take us to the, the promised land as far as grade. No, it's not here. So maybe we can develop it ourselves. This is sort of where we're getting to, by the way. You'll see that the second half of this presentation is, okay, now let's play, let's develop ourselves, because a lot of this is conceptual and theoretical. Some of it is research driven in that some people are starting to, like this text gen ed book teaching with text generation technology. This just came out. There's a link to the website right there. So when you go through the presentation, if you want to click on that, please go ahead and do so. Tons of resources, but nothing really beyond just what you're already doing yourselves. I looked through all of the examples. It was people basically saying, I had it read something for me and it gave me some answers. Great. I had it develop some, quiz questions for me once I fed it some text. Wonderful. I had it write an email for me in the following way. Awesome. Like little applications like that, people are trying out. So you won't find anything here that is beyond those, I'm trying stuff out, I'm trying stuff out, I'm trying stuff out. But that is the mode that we're in, because people are really just trying stuff out. So, but these are the promises of assessment with AI. Data-driven insights is a huge one, knowing exactly who the student is in your classroom, because AI is picking up all that data and making use of it, is a great thing. Identifying those specific learning gaps by analyzing patterns in a student's performance. I mean, we do this ourselves anyway. Well, tracking student performance. Canvas helps a lot with that, right? With who's completing what, to what degree, etc. But what if we could do more with that data? All of a sudden, create an assignment. This student was lacking in this particular department. Create an assignment for me that addresses that. Something along those lines. It's, again, conceptual. Incorporating AI-powered assessments in the educational system offers multifaceted approach to enhancing learning experiences, ensuring that students are learning and truly understanding, and engaging. Engaging is big for me. Like, get active in the classroom, right? Like, be here and actually participate. And I think that makes all the difference. But here's something too. See, and this is from inside the book. I did pull this quote out because I wanted to show it here and really speak to any of you about it. If there's anything in the chat that we should address directly, please let me know. But here's an idea. We need to be mindful of our investment in writing as we try to determine which parts of the writing process we might yield to AI. So the fact is, we'll have to yield some, but let's not yield all. And what don't we yield? Right? To what extent do we have a choice in the matter? Well, AI is in Google Docs. AI is in Microsoft Word. AI is in basically any tool that you open at this point. So you tell me, are you going to ban those things in the classroom? I don't think so. Are you going to police students who are using it if they're just clicking that little star button in Canvas to produce a little content? It gets problematic. Right? So what can we seed? What can we not? Which parts of the writing process can we seed to AI while retaining what we value about writing? But here's the question. What do we value about writing? I know what I value about writing and what I want my students to value about writing. But what about the writing that you're having them do in your classes? You're really having to think again about it. What is it doing? What's its purpose? What's its end, the goal that I'm trying to achieve? We will soon learn that if it is tenable to allow students to use AI for some parts of the writing process, maybe for brainstorming. I do that now. Maybe for grammar and style. We just talked about that too. But not for others. Don't write for me. Right? We may want to embed constraints in our assignments so as not to offload too much of students' cognitive work to AI. I mean, we talked about this parts 1 and 2 when we were talking about AI policies. Please use it this way, not this other way. So here it comes down to letting them know how to use it, letting them know how we want them to apply this new tool. The open question is whether or not these constraints will be possible as AI language models are increasingly integrated into standard writing workflows everywhere. Or whether students, employees, or readers or writers will care about human or AI writing of prose. So will it matter in a few years who wrote it? Maybe that wasn't the purpose of the class anymore. Maybe it was something else. Now, what could it be? We're just speculating here because, again, this is all very, very hypothetical, very much an ongoing thing. It's sort of evolving as we go. Here's another thing. I was talking to my students about this the other day. Sort of a little roadmap, you know? Why do you want to use an AI chatbot? Do you want to help get started on an assignment? Yes, great. Continue on to this trajectory. Do you want to help me improve on what I've already done? Great. Continue down this trajectory, which by the way involves a lot of talking to your teacher, using something else to look for the data, double checking those hallucinations and biases because it gets everything wrong. Cite the tool in some way. Now, APA, MLA, they're all trying to figure out how to cite this thing. So give it a few months and they'll have something, right? Now, do you want to use it to fully complete an assignment for me? No, hard pass, don't do that. Do you want it to help with research, facts, quotes, and resources? No, hard pass, refer back to hallucinations and everything we talked about in the first two presentations. Like, it makes a lot of mistakes. Don't use it that way. Yeah.
I would give you a answer. Why not use it to help you with research? Because it makes a lot of mistakes.
Because it makes research up. It says, oh, no, do you want some research about AI in the classroom? Yeah, for sure. Let me give you the 3 studies that just came out. And 2 of those studies it just made up on the spot. So you look it up, let you copy paste it into your browser. Please find this doesn't exist. So it hallucinates, it makes things up. In my AI policy, the 3rd bit or the 2nd bit is you are responsible for any of the mistakes that it makes, because it shouldn't be doing any of the cognitive work at all. It really is just for, hey, stasis questions. If you're a fan of rhetoric, you know what stasis questions are. It's those questions where you can't quite get past them until we agree on something. You know, is this artwork? Is this not artwork? Well, what is artwork? Here's some definitions. What are the debates between what is artwork and here's all the conversation that exists about that already. But all right, now what do you think is what you have to ask your students, right? Can't relegate that to the machine. Give me a summary or an analysis of what you just learned. You shouldn't relegate that to the machine, but you could at this point. So another thing here, these tools already have, oh yes.
From the chat, so Bear jumped in with, I would really love specific hands-on workshops for these concepts, tools. Like, let's all get together and physically do things with our assignments, Canvas, etc. So I just wondered if you could speak to that.
Yes, actually, towards the end, I do have an example of what I think Bear is referring to. Very literal, input output type of thing. So yeah, we'll get there in just a second, Bear. I just wanted to let you know that there are already tools like Turnitin. We know this, that are starting to add AI as a foundational element, recognizing matches, yada yada. This was the policing bit that we said is an approach, not the approach that I prefer, but an approach, and definitely one that we should consider, because plagiarism is not, it's real. Plagiarism is something that students get up to sometimes, so we have to address it. Now, Edmodo is AI-driven quizzes. So Edmodo's been around for a long time. Again, these tools are starting to evolve into the age of AI is what's happening. They're recognizing, okay, AI's here, level up time. And if they're recognizing it and using these tools, integrating them, then, I mean, a lot of these are the tools that you use to create your quizzes, to create your materials. Well, now you're gonna have direct access to these things. I mean, is it really, I should say, fair to tell students you can't use the same tools that we're using now to create? We're getting into a very, complex situation here. And those of you that are like, well, I'm not creating with AI yet, right? Now, Quizlet was one that I tried earlier, but my computer crashed. So I actually, that's why I had a little asterisk on it. I was going to show you a Quizlet in the interest of actually going at a direct tool. It does create customizable quizzes based on your content. So imagine that you load up this bit of notes into it, and then it will spit out discussion questions, summaries, a presentation, a whole lot of stuff for you, study cards, a bunch of stuff. So check it out. It's a good one to look into. I couldn't do it once I loaded up the computer again because it was on my laptop. So apologies for that. Another possible direction is performance-based assessments. So again, if you're into project-based learning, then this will make a lot of sense. It is slightly different than that in that you're going to be using AI on the go, But think about, something like in English, maybe you're asking students to create a multimedia storytelling project where they write and illustrate a short story, but then present it to a younger group at a local library or school. Like now, you're applying all kinds of higher order thinking, and you're performing, and you're being rhetorical, and there's a lot of work there, but there's a lot of technology there too. So the AI makes it easier, because a lot of that would sound scary if it wasn't that you were telling me that I had AI tools. I have to go do what? I don't know how to do that. Well, there's a tool. Okay, let me do it then. It's exciting, it's engaging. People are making podcasts now, straight up AI. So they generate the script, they run that script through an automator, basically. They select the face, and that face does the speaking. Then you upload your voice, and it sounds like you, because it's a pretty accurate picture of your voice. And that's it. You can have it say whatever you want. It's just there, a little chatbot, sounds like you, right? So it's starting to happen.
Amy mentioned Alan, sorry, mentioned in the chat that Perusal has added AI discussion question generation as well.
There you go. And actually, we should have did we hit the little AI button on the Zoom itself to summarize everything that we're talking about here? Right, we just saw it at Academic Senate the other day. Josh and I were like, "What's this do?" And it's a summary that AI will generate of everything we've been talking about here, instead of notes, instead of minutes. Or I guess not, because you said it wasn't perfect, but it was something.
I did have some common orders.
Yeah, exactly. Some issues to address. Imagine a mathematics situation where you're asking students to design a budget plan for a small startup, applying mathematical principles. A lot of this, again, is project-based learning. It's no different than what we have, but the question is, how does AI create a super-powered version of that assignment? Again, imagine that you really could tell your students, I want you to create a podcast in 3-4 steps. Let's see, that's all it takes to create a podcast? Yeah. So now go create one for something you actually want to talk about, right? And make some money and pay your way through school. Oh, wonderful, right? Now, what about economics? I think you could see that English, mathematics, and economics are all tied here through entrepreneurship. So there is something there to it. Entrepreneurship is an interesting solution to a lot of this. Students could be assigned to analyze the economic impact of a recent local or global event. So again, research-based, but we said don't do the research with AI. Well, what can I do with AI then? What about the brainstorming? What are the issues that go into that topic? Perfect. Now here are the brainstorm notes. Now you got to develop a proposal though. Can I run that through ChatGPT? You can, but please don't. It's plagiarism, right? So the challenges and considerations that we have then are that a lot of this is still building. It's under construction. At the moment, it really comes down to conversations about plagiarism, so policing and reporting, and limitations of bias in grading tools. They're just not there yet. But like I said, maybe we can get to developing them. Now, let's go to the next slide here. Here's what Bear was requesting, a much more specific, here's some stuff that I've tried out. And I should have a disclaimer. It's like it's just some stuff I've tried out. It's not perfect, but the tools that are out there are no better than this, is something I'm very confident saying, having looked at a bunch of them, in that the grading part is not there. But here's what you can do. So I have a prompt. I mentioned low stakes writing. So this is a low stakes writing activity that I do in my classes. My 101 classes, I really do it for all my classes, but with different reading materials, so different reading levels. But it's always, the first one is always coming to terms with the text, because I like this reading strategy. It asks students to do 3 things. Define the project of the author, note keywords and passages, so they have to pull some out of the text, and then they have to assess the uses of the text and the limits. Meaning, how is this a good thing to consider, and what does it do for my thinking? And also, here's what they could have done better. Here's where they're limited in their, some pros and cons. A little bit of dual engagement is what it is. So these right here are the things that I check for when I assess this work. Did you provide an adequate summary of the text in question? Did you extract, like I just said, some key words and phrases with some direct quotes? I want you to pull out ideas from the text. Did you provide an assessment of the author's ideas, or did you analyze it, or did you just summarize? Sometimes they get lost in just summarizing what the author said. I'm like, well, where's the analysis? Students should ideally be showcasing an example of their own hidden intellectualism as well. So as part of the prompt, I have them understand it, then analyze it, but then apply it to your own thinking. So where are you a hidden intellect? Now I might say, like, I'm a hidden intellectual about gaming, right? Or about AI, let's say, because I really like it and I'm engaged with it and I think, about it a certain way. I think about it through academic eyes, which is what Graph is really saying. What do you see that way? So finally, I said, what's the final thing that I need to focus on? What about grammar? Like I said, last minute thing, but focus on that. This wasn't there for the first few iterations. It was just those. I said, here you go, do that for me. And then I would run a draft through it, something that a student produced. Here you go. And it would spit out some responses. Now, I'm not showing that because it is private student work, but just know that you can try this yourself. Copy this, try it with one of your drafts from your class, substitute the text in question. Did they do those things for that text? Right? That's how you would prime it to then run a response. So that was one example. I mean, it's something that I'm still trying out. I ended up adding this afterwards because I said, this looks very error driven. Like it really guts your paper almost. Like it does so I said, no, focus on some positive feedback, right? Sandwich the good, the bad, the good, right? Like let's build them up. Let's not tear them down. And so it started adding these little short comments directed at the student that praises what they did well, critiques what could be improved, and points to specific language issues where appropriate. So it bolds them or highlights them.
For like number 5, what was its response? Was it like pull out specific errors they had made, or just say you have some?
No, it would note example. So it would say this student has made a number of errors related to grammar. Here's a few examples. Now, what I did afterwards is where we get into the assessment and evaluation. The power of it all is there was that student paper I remember that had all kinds of errors. Like it was literally just riddled with grammatical mistakes. I could tell. And one of the things that I tell my students is when the grammar gets in the way of the meaning, then we have a problem. So, anyway, I ran it through and I said, find every single mistake, every single grammatical error in this document and fix it. And then beyond that, give me a short activity for addressing that grammatical issue directly. And it just spit out the response. And I copied that and I gave it to the student. Now they got a this is complete and complete. They got to complete on the assignment because the content was there, the grammar was not. But okay, then we talked about how revising it would look. And now I do have an example of that here, just below. So here is, if you look at this thing here that I'm pasting in, it's just the very top part of the draft. So imagine that this is paragraph 1. There's about 2-3 more paragraphs down below it. But there is a word limit for ChatGPT. So you can't just paste an enormous 10-page essay. If you're using GPT-4, you can input the whole draft as a PDF or as a Google Doc or as a web extension. So at that point, you can go with however long writing you would like. But in any case, analyze is wrong. Evolute is wrong. Elements is wrong. PORT is wrong. This is AI produced as well, by the way. On the spot, I was like, give me something filled with grammatical mistakes, please. Here it is. Great. Now, can you fix it, right? I've completed my draft. Please proofread it for any errors in grammar or tense. Refrain from rewriting or changing what I have written, unless to correct those errors. And here's what it did. So you can evaluate the output for yourself, right? Is it too drastic a shift or is it okay? If this is what was submitted, right? Let's assume this was student written. I told you it wasn't, but let's assume that it was. And this is what the GPT changed it to and correcting it. All it did was analyze, evaluate, elements, poet. It just corrected the little mistakes. But it didn't make any drastic changes to the syntax, to the sentences, organization, nothing. That was my purpose with it. Perfect. Thank you for that. That was a great, successful output because I got some feedback. It corrected what I needed to correct. Moving on. Right. Now that's here. Then I said, let's get fun with it because you were asking whether it will find them directly or not. I said, can you please emphasize them for me visually? Sure. These are the mistakes, right? So imagine the power of this, right? Just this alone. Let's go with this alone. hey, please run this draft through. Note all the student errors. Here you go, student, your paper's filled with errors. Go correct them, please. Now, how they correct them, that's on them. Should they know the grammatical rules? Absolutely. And we should show that to them, and we should practice with them, and we should give them examples. But hey, ultimately, it's up to them to apply those rules. So that's sort of where I'm at as far as how I would use this. It's experiment time. It really is. There's no other way to say it. So conclusion and takeaways is it's time to experiment with AI now. Embrace the transformative power and just start playing around with it, right? Implementation and best practices. The goal should be to develop strategies for successful integration, AI-based grading and assessment in education. We need to work on those ourselves to make sure that the assessment and what comes through is what we want, is effective, is actually addressing what needs to be addressed. And case studies require individuals willing to innovate. So guess what? That's where I said we need to do it then. Because we're those individuals innovating. I'm sorry, there's too many people just kind of sitting down saying, I'm not involved in this argument. It's like, okay, well, I am. Who's with me? Is the idea. So we can do it. I'm doing stuff with AI. I know Alan's doing stuff with AI. I know Josh is doing stuff with AI. I know some of you are doing stuff with AI. So let's write about it, publish it, put it out there for others, because that's where we are. And we might just be the ones who innovate it. That's where we are. There is no tool for grading yet. There are little tools for catching AI plagiarizers, not really what we need. There are tools for quizzes and math support. Those are good things. Here's another good, handout that I found just online, finding resources. What if we use these principles for guiding students through working with AI? You gotta learn. Absolutely, right? Familiarize yourself with generative AI, its opportunities and its potential risks. That's what we've been talking about, absolutely. But know what the thing is. Expect to encounter the unknown. Yeah, that's where we are. Go forth bravely, hero, right? Number 2, audit. Carefully review your workflows. I mean, what if it writes your email and you're like, that's a pretty good email. Should I rewrite the email? It's a pretty, do you have template emails? Any of you? Okay, what are we talking about today, right? So is it the right email for the right situation? Thanks. That's what I need, right? Is this an outmoded activity? Are you doing stuff in your class that's probably, put that aside. Let's retire that. That one's pretty much no longer what it used to be, I know I've switched out a lot of stuff and I brought in a whole lot of other stuff, and it's active, it's ongoing. How can AI enhance the learning experience? I mean, this is a great example. Students weren't that into the story of Medea. I brought this in, they were all about it. We had a long debate. It was great. I have notes. It was a great experience. So I thought I'd share it here today. This is an enhancement because I had to adapt. I had to change it up.
There's a quick question.
And that's number 3, actually, is adapt. Yeah.
So Marcy says, during my midterm essay exam review, I'm thinking of putting the questions into ChatGPT 3 or 4 and showing my students how inadequate the answers are. My exams are open notes and I want to head off problems. Is this a good idea?
My personal opinion is yes, but I am not the end all be all. It sounds like what I would do, of course. Yes, you're having them look at responses that are generalized responses to the content that they're supposed to respond to. So you're going to show that it's not specific enough. Absolutely, I do that too. It's like, this is a very general response, but what did you think? Or what did you notice that not the general audience would notice, but you yourself? Absolutely, that's the right approach, I think. And it is an adaptation, it sounds like, of what you're already doing. So absolutely really cool, right? Reshape your instructor role as AI tools become ubiquitous. So it does mean that we have to stay on top of it though, right? And the good thing about it is that I'm actively out there and so are others, like using these tools. So we'll let you know if anything major comes around. But for now, we're in a phase of experimentation. So adapt your lessons, learn through agency, be prepared to iterate and do it again and do it again and do it again. And so what you will find is actually you won't be gaining time back at first. You'll be putting more time in. That's just how it works. You got to prime everything and have good foundations. But then once the foundations are set, trust me that it goes a lot faster. And, I can create a pretty thorough lesson plan on my own with no support, but with support, I do like 10 at once. I forgot to lesson plan this. Let me do it now. And these other ones at the same time, because It's just amplifying what you already know how to do. Plus there are tools like EduAid that I've shown to this group that help you with that now. So share is another big one, right? Leverage the experiences and insights of others. That's what I was talking about. That's why we're here. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we're here discussing it. I'm glad to hear that there is adaptation happening. Teach students about the growing impact of AI in the workplace. See, those of you that are avoiding AI and not talking about it are not doing that with students because you're not letting them know that it's even out there. And some of them are going, hey, but there's AI out there. And you're going, if you don't talk about it, so please talk about it. Share what you're doing. Emphasize the importance of mastering the course content. That's the main reason they're there. But that tool can help them get there. That's what I'm excited about. And finally, teach. So here I am sort of sharing what I have learned. Please pass it on. Please go do a presentation of your own somewhere that others presenting can't be. So maybe there's a conference that's about a different discipline. Go to it, bring AI to it. And maybe there's already AI there, but see what the field is looking like within your own discipline. Promote honest learning rather than relying on detection technologies. I mean, I like that one. That's why I like this chart. I didn't create it. I will add a citation. I took it from LinkedIn. So I'll add a citation for the person who created it after the fact. I forgot to do it here now. I'm not trying to plagiarize. It's not mine, okay? And finally, if you do want to join the conversation, you do have things you're doing. I mean, I'm going to keep riffing on this. We have a publication that's accepting, it's a call for papers, and we'll be publishing it sometime next year. I think we're accepting through January, sometime in 2024 publication. So anything that you've done in the last 6 months or that you will do moving forward is a good idea to write and publish about. And I know I'm going to do, so I'm the editor of this particular magazine, so I'm going to do a little editor's note, but I'm going to submit something as well. I know I've talked to Bear, Alan, and a few others about it. I'm trying to drag Josh in here as well. Interdisciplinary, it's called Inside English, but it's interdisciplinary. It should be interdisciplinary English.
How do we get copies of this magazine?
That's the goal, is actually we may be able to get some funding to publish these physically, and these magazines are
Even electronically.
well, they're meant to go to all the sister colleges across California. So they would be going to every
But
campus.
they're not yet.
Not yet. I mean, we're accepting, the call for papers is live right now. You can get more information at the link here. And if you're coming back to another presentation, the next one is October 27th. And that one, I hope Josh is here for, and maybe some other art-focused individuals, because it's art from words, unleashing creativity with AI for educators. You don't have to be in art though. You could just want to spruce up your content. You could just want to like make it more, adapt it again to something more modern with these new tools. So that's what we're going to be focusing on there. It's a lot of mid-journey AI. So that's the one that I mainly use, but Josh is using other tools. And maybe if he's down to co-present with me, I'm going to put you on the spot. He's said, yes, everybody, then we're going to co-present and talk about art from words, and hope to see you there at that one. I basically have some time now for questions. So let me pull up the chat, see if there's any questions here. Other than that, I thank you for being here. My info's at the bottom, and thank you. But let's look at the chat.
How do you get the time to investigate and experiment?
I have an MVP at home who's allowing me the time. Most valuable player on the team, my wife. She's definitely the one that allows for a lot of this to happen. Yeah, I went to Las Vegas to a conference just this last week. She actually came with me to that one, but we had to leave the kids somewhere, so we made plans, and it was more technological. So we were looking at not the AI conversation, although there was some AI there. We were looking at new tools like other than AI that are coming out. So blockchain, NFTs in the classroom, things like publication tools, things like that. And the AI that was there made me think about one other use case that I already mentioned here. So the bot that you could have that sounds and looks like you, they actually had a camera that was spinning around and recording. So you would stand in the middle, so there's some sci-fi stuff. It would go, right, scan you, and then there would be a 3D avatar of you right there. And what this company is doing is essentially housing these 3D avatars, and they're going to allow people to engage with them. So it's exactly what I thought about, but with education. I was like, we could have the same thing in our classrooms, like a permanent office hours Josh that's sitting there going, Yes, tell me more, and like answering questions, and please come in and doing all the work for you, right? With you, really, because you still have to address student responses. So you can't just relegate it all to the machine, but it can help you speed certain things along. So, let's see, we've got. During my, oh no, this is just Marcy's comment here. Yeah, then I think I'm gonna cut it short then, if there are no more questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have my hand up.
Yeah, oh, sorry, apologies, I don't see the hands. There are
No
no hands.
worries.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead, take it, Bear, and then we'll go to Josh.
I just wanted to say this while people were here. I would love to, I don't know what we would have to do, start a petition, whatever. Like professional development is nice and all, but this is too big for just presentations like this. Like I propose that we as a campus get as many people interested in this as possible and potentially have a class created. Like give Rodrigo 0.2 release time to teach this as a class to faculty, like an 8-week class or whatever, where we actually have assignments where we're physically doing these things in class, doing
That sounds fun.
project-based, like it, I think that if we truly want to face this, because I know education and especially administrators don't like, change and new things. They try to put it off as long as possible, but this is happening so fast. And if we want to be leaders of the future, we need to understand this stuff now. And I don't think, I mean, this is awesome and your examples are awesome, but I think we need something more intense. And since we already have someone here, Rodrigo Gomez, the amazing, who's willing to put in the time and is excited about doing this, we should utilize that resource. Like Miramar could be like on the forefront of creating amazing things if we would do this. So I'm just saying, if we could, I don't know how we would even go about something of that grand level, but I would love to see something like that happen. And I think
I know
that do great.
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Brad. I know that there's some stuff happening at the district level. I know that there are conversations that are starting to sort of be brought to the table at the different sister colleges, and all San Diego will be eventually, but I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I would love to participate in that. It doesn't have to be me teaching it, but definitely someone interested, or we bring in experts who can do it, more specific or whatever. But yeah, I think it is necessary. I think we do need more attention. That's why I really am glad that you guys are here, and that those of you that are here are trying stuff out. You're interested enough, and then we ripple out to other audiences, right? It's the way to go. So I'm with you, man. I know that there are more. This is what I'll have you. Let me throw this as a disclaimer. You're going to start to see more stuff on email, online courses, all kinds of curriculum that's going to try to be sold to you about how you can make AI easy for the classroom. It's no deeper, no more profound than what we've covered here for free. So as an educator, as educators, I foresee a very interesting future in the next, maybe year or two even. It's not that far ahead, where you're going to be very tempted to use a lot of these tools yourself. And that being the case, using them well is necessary. And so, yeah, I think we need something like what you were saying.
Can you go back a few slides?
Yeah.
Like steps of using AI.
Yeah. Let me go back here.
Kind of going along with what Bear's mentioned, that one there.
This one.
Yeah. I think the thing that we could all really benefit from is that promote honest learning rather than relying on detection technologies.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us probably came into this hoping you were going to tell us how to catch all our students.
Yeah.
And I think we could definitely benefit from that.
Yeah, it says, Amy says that there's an AFT is developing a class for spring facilitated by Ian Douglas. So look for that, definitely, and sign up. That's one of the ways that you're really going to get some practice, is getting into the room with someone that is doing that work for sure. Promote and inspire honest education. Yeah, inspire. I love that word. Inspire. Breathe in. Right, so hopefully this was inspirational. I know it's not the end all be all presentation, and there is more official stuff coming as well from the district and from the AFT. There's a lot of different channels. So resources are coming, but we're in a place of development. So I just want to really end on that note. It's get out there and experiment and play around and come join me in experimentation. If you want to do interdisciplinary work, man, let's do it. I'm all about it. So thank you again. I'll cut it a little bit short because it doesn't seem like we have too many questions in the chat. And I don't want to hold you off any longer. I think we've covered the main ideas. So thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right.